Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to this afternoon session on flexing your psychological muscle. We all experience stress, setbacks, and difficult emotions from time to time. And today we have Thang Yuen, who will be enlightening us to remind us on how we could tap into our strengths and seek help from support systems. So without further ado, let's begin and let me introduce you to Thang Yuen first. Yuen is a clinical psychologist based in Kuala Lumpur, and her current primary work is focused on psychological and palliative care support to adolescents and adults with emotional challenges. She also lectures part-time at a private university and supervises postgraduate clinical psychology trainees. And Yuen has been an active user of doTERRA essential oils and supplements since she joined as a wellness advocate in November 2019. So let's welcome Thang Yuen. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benita, for the kind introduction. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So we always say we have an afternoon tea talk. It's just that we can't serve tea for our online talk. So help yourself to your own tea. So let me begin.
And speak louder, yeah, both speaker, a bit soft. Thank you.
Louder. Okay. Okay. So here I like to first define what resilience means, or what is mental strength. Yeah, it's very simply put, the ability to adapt well to whatever difficulties, what we call adversity, whatever trauma or tragedy, or any kind of sources of stress. Yeah, mental strength or resilience means that we have the ability to also bounce back from these adversities, right? And in most cases, we will come out stronger and better. And it's usually a newer and better version of ourselves. I always liken it to us being a ball. You know, when we throw a ball onto the ground, we expect the ball to bounce up, right? Because bouncing balls up, they will bounce up. However, sometimes when we drop the ball on the ground and the ball doesn't have enough air, it will just lie flat. It's when it's just not having enough oomph in it. So the idea here is that how can we now look for ways to sort of pump in that air so that the ball becomes bouncy again. Yeah. All right. So let's look at the profile of a person with mental strength. A resilient person. What kind of characteristics are we looking at when we want to talk about someone who's resilient? Well, these are some of the characteristics. It's a person with strong relationships. Yeah, a person with good self-awareness, able to regulate emotions, right? Have pretty strong willpower, I must say. Yeah, and a positive self-regard. What do we mean by positive self-regard? Things like self-esteem, self-worth, self-image, all these come under this idea of positive self-regard. Because without self-regard, we feel small and helpless, and we struggle at becoming what we can be. Yeah, that's positive self-regard. Another characteristics would be having realistic assessment. Yeah, assessment here as in when we want to look at things that are on our plate, for example, the kind of stressors, the kind of challenges that we have. And then we want to be able to, we're all born problem solvers. We're not the ones, we all have this actually resilience in us. It's pretty much inborn because it's a survival instinct. So here when we say realistic assessment as in being able to look at what we have on our hands and in what way can we cope and being realistic about it. Yeah. The other thing is being flexible and adaptive, and this is actually very important. Last but not least, it's being focused. Yeah. So I will go through very quickly the next couple of slides, and on some ways on how we can increase our resiliency.
Yuen
Okay.
can speak louder. Is that only my
Louder.
problem, or everybody can hear well?
Let me just go back to then the volume then. You want me to speak louder?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try and speak louder.
Can Yogi or whoever, Nancy, Sweetie, can you all hear well?
Yes. Yes, I can hear well.
We can hear, I can hear, but it's
Soft.
okay.
It's still very soft?
Acceptable on my side here.
Acceptable. Yeah.
Okay. I will
Louder
try
would be
to speak a
better.
bit louder then. Okay.
Thank you.
I can hear clearly.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
for your
you.
feedback, because you know with this I'm not very good at
No problem.
maneuvering all my.
Stephanie say it's very soft. Maybe Stephanie, you adjust your volume to the max and see. My side here is max already. Otherwise, me and talk until the end, then I cannot get the information is wasted. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try. I'll try to speak
Thanks.
louder. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
So how do we strengthen those muscles? When we say muscles here, we are not actually, when we talk about muscle, actually the brain is a muscle, right? So here resiliency, I'm really talking about very much in here. Actually, the muscle that's resilient muscles that I'm referring to is very much up here. Yeah. So how do we go about that? Generally, five ways. Okay. Building connections. Yeah. Fostering wellness. Finding a purpose, having a positive mindset, and getting help, right? So we'll go through each one of it as we go along. Okay, so on building your connections, basically, it's just two main points that we want to remember. Actually, you know it already. We got to firstly prioritize our relationships. We go about life, we make friends, we have acquaintances, right? You know, and if we are all social beings. But what we mean here by prioritizing relationships is to actually make an effort to connect more with empathetic and understanding people, right? The focus is on finding people who are more trustworthy and who are compassionate. Yeah, and these are the people who will be there for us and who actually will validate our feelings. And these are actually very important people in our life. I often hear my son, my 15-year-old son, playing, you know, boys these days, they play online games. There was a time he said, "Whoa, these people are so toxic." I said, "Whoa, where do you learn this word toxic?" Right? So he's sort of, you know, adolescents and children who play games these days also know, they understand when you say, you know, can you prioritize your friendships? They will know. If they are toxic, so to speak, in double inverted commas, they know that means they don't feel good with them, about these people. I mean, so for us, as in, you know, how might we want to build our connections is to prioritizing relationships, people who will be those who will validate our feelings, yeah, who will acknowledge and give us a listening ear. Doesn't matter even if they don't give us any advice. Sometimes it's not about the advice that we're seeking. All right. The other one would be joining a group. So depending, you know, what your interests are, it could be groups that, you know, on maybe charitable organizations, maybe religious based. Yeah. When we say when you join a group, it's also one way to be able to connect with people. Yeah. Basically, two main points here for building our connections. All right. Fostering wellness. Fostering wellness, we cannot talk about our body, right? We cannot talk about our physical health. We've got to be able to put in effort and time to focus on this. When we say self-care, right? Self-care may be a popular buzzword these days, but it's a good practice for mental health and for building resilience. And that's because stress is just as much physical as it is emotional, right? So by promoting positive lifestyle factors like proper nutrition, yeah, having ample sleep and rest, and also hydration, don't forget about drinking enough water, yeah, and a regular exercise can not only strengthen our body to adapt to stress, but it will also reduce the toll of emotions like anxiety and depression. Very interestingly, this word exercise, in my work, I I promote this a lot, especially when my clients who have low moods, especially. One of the things that I require them to do is actually really have movement. Although a lot of people say, no, I don't exercise, I got no time now. How to go to the gym with the CMCO and all that. But when we say exercise is really about movement, it's also the other thing that what science has discovered, or what the medical science has proven to us, is when we exercise, when we have a workout, it's not about sweating it out. It's not just only having a better body shape, for example, but the brain actually secretes the feel-good hormones. So if we overdo exercise, which you see some people may be addicted to exercise, and that's precisely it, because a result of exercising is actually having this feel-good hormones, feel-good neurotransmitters that's in the brain. So people get addicted to actually exercise. But here I'm not promoting being addicted, but I'm saying that it's good to have exercise. And this is one of the reasons. Okay, so body, mind, spirit. We also like to promote this idea of connecting to your spirituality. Spirituality here doesn't mean that you must be religion based. And what we're trying to say here is the spirituality, the essence of us being being a human. So what is this thing called practicing of mindfulness? Now, when we look at the word mindfulness, mindfulness is just very easy, simply defined as a state of mind where we are paying attention, when we are being aware of our present moment. That's mindfulness. So what are the ways that we can use to practice mindfulness? Could be journaling, and we call it mindful journaling. So when you are focused at what you're doing, as in the writing, the journaling, that's an act of mindfulness, right? And if you do yoga, you gotta have focus when you're doing yoga, or people who are you can do prayer, you can do meditation, So while you do these practices of mindfulness, just remember to focus on the positive aspects, and bring to mind the things that you're grateful for. Literally, just counting our blessings,
Just bring a spare t-shirt so they should be drenched in the...
Take a towel lah.
Someone's mind is okay. So another way of fostering wellness is to avoid, here we say avoid negative outlets. When we say negative outlets, we mean substances. Well, it may be tempting really for many people to mask pain with alcohol, with drugs, or other substances. But it is really like putting a bandage on a deep wound. So focus instead, right, on giving our body the resources to manage stress, rather than seeking to just get rid of the feeling of stress altogether. So it is really sometimes looking a little bit deeper. Okay, so now today's talk is not really about how to manage stress. It's just one of these things that it's very much a journal talk on how we can build on resilience. So another way we say is find purpose, right? Find purpose. Helping others can be meaningful. And it is in finding meaning in the activity, it helps to build on resilience. There's a saying that when we give, we get something in return, right? So through helping others, either by being a volunteer, right, or simply supporting a friend in times of need, you get a sense of purpose, and your self-worth increases, right? So here we were talking about the positive self-regard, remember earlier? So here, one way of increasing positive self-regard is to help others, right? By connecting with other people and lending a helping hand, you will grow in resilience. So another way of finding purpose is to be proactive, right? When you look at my slide here, there are 1, 2, 3, right? Basically just 3 simple steps. Firstly, very importantly, we got to acknowledge and accept our emotions during hard times. When we are angry, we say, yeah, we need to acknowledge that we're angry. When we're sad, we need to acknowledge we're sad. But it doesn't mean that when we're angry, we, kick the door, kick the dog, or, do other inappropriate way of coping, right? Acknowledging and accepting our emotions is the first step. By acknowledging and accepting, can we now, be able to then ask this big question: what can I do about that problem in my life? Yeah. And then thirdly, if the problems seem too big to tackle, so we got to break them down into small, manageable steps. Yeah. Okay. For example, if you get laid off at work, for example, and then you may not be able to convince your boss that it was a mistake to let you go, but you can spend an hour each day developing your strengths or working on your resume. So by taking initiative like this, it will remind you that you can, foster more of this motivation and purpose. Yeah. And therefore increasing the likelihood that you will rise up again during painful times. So another way of finding purpose is to move towards your goal. This we've all known all about goal setting, right? Perhaps we got to just remember that to get to the big goal, it's really all the small steps that really matter. So what's one thing I know I can accomplish today that helps me move in the direction I want to go? So this is usually sometimes I do this when I work with parents, work with the moms at the hospital. The children, well, firstly, of course, they need to accept that some of these children will not grow up to be adults, right? And it can be a very daunting and very trying experience, very stressful. Just being in a hospital and knowing that the child will not get any better, right? So usually my work is really zooming into building resilience, not just in the mother, but also in the child. In the child could be a young child, 5-6 years old, or even the adolescent. Usually, this is what I say to them. What is the one thing I can do today, just for today? I don't need to think about tomorrow because I don't know what tomorrow brings. What is it, that one thing that I can do today to make what I want to do more meaningful? Because we sort of, like, for example, maybe the mother, caring for her sick child, and her goal is really the goal in palliative care is really helping the patient to have a good death, to have a good ending, right? So that is the big goal. But it's the day-to-day that's really hard. So we promote things like, what can we do on a day-to-day basis, rather than keep thinking about, really what the big outcome there. All right. So then there is another aspect of finding purpose is to look for opportunities for self-discovery. Self-discovery is a lifelong quest for all of us, right? There's never a time when you will actually say that you fully know who you really are, right? Well, for some of you who may know me before today, I mean, as you've known me, you do know that I actually didn't start off studying psychology back in university. Actually, my first degree wasn't even in psychology. I went back into uni again for retraining 20 years after I first graduated with a degree in mass communication. And then I went on to do a master's. Of course, before the master's, I did a postgraduate diploma in health psychology, and then I went into the master's in clinical psychology. Well, psychology is very fascinating to me because I was already on this road of self-discovery. So here, I like to encourage everyone, to look for these opportunities. Yeah, we find many ways in self-growth along the way. And And for example, right, you know, after maybe a hardship or a tragedy, yeah, people often report better relationships and a greater sense of strength, yeah, and even while feeling vulnerable. When we say people report, not just in research, but it's also in the work that I've been doing. My um, my work is very niche at the moment. So I also do other things, but the niche population that I work with is the children who are very sick. Yeah, and these are the things that you know, after the passing of these children, the mothers, when we get together, we hear stories about how they have emerged stronger. They have emerged, you know, in a way, being able to um, understand much more about their purpose in life. Yeah. Okay. So now moving on, we've talked about building connections. We've talked about fostering wellness. Yeah. So now let's and we've also talked about finding purpose. Let's talk about now embracing healthy thoughts. Yeah. Healthy thoughts here is literally about the mindset, right? Firstly, of course, we want to talk about keeping things in perspective. Yeah, how you think can play a significant part in how you feel. Yeah. How resilient you are when faced with obstacles. I won't go through into this. You know, what I'm trying to say is, you know, in this psychology model of how we can tackle difficult problems like anxiety, depression, we normally use this model called the CBT. CBT is not the criminal breach of trust, but it just essentially means cognitive behavioral therapy. So in this model, it's very much about how the thinking, the mindset, the thinking, the cognition, that's the C, um, influences the emotions, and from there also influences our behavior, and if they're all interconnected. So if you want to tackle things or problems, it's best to really look at, firstly, to tackle the thoughts. So you got to firstly think about keeping things in perspective. Yeah, try to identify areas of irrational thinking. Yeah, such as a tendency to catastrophize difficulties, make it bigger than what it is. Yeah, or assume the world is out to get you. Try to adopt a more balanced and realistic thinking pattern. So here we say try, right? So what I'm trying to, yeah, I also want to say what I'm trying to do is, I'm just going to just give you sort of some keywords here, but well, I plan to also do another sharing next month, where we're just going to really talk about how we can really talk about how to embrace a healthy thoughts, how to keep to a positive mindset. Yeah. The other thing that part of embracing healthy thoughts here would be accepting change. Accepting change here in the total opposite would be the denial, right? A lot of us have this. A lot of us, in fact, perhaps it's so much in us that sometimes we don't even realize that we are in denial. Yeah. So when we say accept that change, it's part of life. When you really think about it, what is permanent in this life, in life, is really change, right? Change is practically, it's just what it is. Yeah, it will be just part of life. Certain goals and ideals may no longer be maybe achievable as a result of adverse situations in our life. For example, here we uh, you know, we're stuck here with the RMCO, and you know, I don't know, I didn't mean to talk about this, but suddenly I thought about how it was so unfortunate. Last week, a very dear friend's father, he lost a lot of money, so much money. He thought he was just going to go bankrupt, and he shocked us all. He took his life, and basically not being able to accept that being the certain goals that he wanted to retire in a very comfortable manner, but because of he lost so much money, he knew that he was not able to, and then he thought that in the next 20 years it'll be just too much a toll on his children. So anyway, yeah, so I thought maybe we learn from other people's difficult challenges. We learn to these are lessons of we learn lessons from other people's life as well. So another way to embrace healthy thoughts would be trying to maintain a hopeful outlook, right? It's hard to be positive when life isn't getting our way, yeah? So an optimistic outlook empowers us to expect that good things will happen to us, yeah? So here we would like to encourage, perhaps if you heard of this word visualization, right? Try visualizing what you want rather than worrying about what you fear, right? So the awareness must come up. The awareness comes up like, okay, I'm going to be out of a job, or my business is going to be this and that, for example. Instead of focusing so much on this fear of what might happen, try to perhaps then visualize, a better outcome, yeah? So, yeah, along the way, when you do that in your visualization, try noting any subtle ways in which you start to feel better as you deal with difficult situations. This will be very helpful. Yeah. One of the other ways of embracing healthy thoughts will be learning from our past. Yeah. By looking back at who or what was helpful in previous times of distress, right? We may discover how we can respond effectively to new difficult situations. We got to remind ourselves of where we've been able to find strength, yeah, and ask ourselves what we've learned from those experiences. Yeah, I took this this quote from the net, yeah, and I really like it. The past is to be learned from, not lived in. Yeah, people who are stuck in depression are really people who dwell too much in the past. Yeah, it's a lot in the past. And people who have anxiety, and these are the people who are have a lot of worries and a lot of fear of the future. So yeah, when we look at the two end of it, we may say that we are not a patient with depression or anxiety, but we experience these emotions too. The low moods and the anxious moods. It's part of being a human being. It's about how we regulate our emotion and how we cope with it. All right. The other thing is, we've talked about all these 4 ways now. So the 5th way is by seeking help. Yeah, getting help when you need it is crucial in building our resilience. Yeah, for many people, using our own resources and the kinds of strategies that we've talked about may be enough, yeah, for building up the resilience. But at times, an individual might get stuck, yeah, or have difficulty making progress, right? So here, when we say, it may sound like I'm trying to promote the, mental health services, but I must tell you that it is important. If it's just getting too overwhelming, it's good to contact a mental health professional, a counselor or a psychologist, yeah, because they will be able to help in in helping us in looking for appropriate strategies, yeah, to tackle whatever that's on our plate, for example, yeah. So that is very important, getting the help when the problem is just too big. Sometimes we may want to speak to a friend, yeah, and having friends to speak about our problems is great, yeah. And sometimes maybe when you go and see a counselor, you may think, why am I paying all this money? This counselor doesn't seem to be doing anything. But maybe the counselor is just being the container, being the venting machine. Yeah, one of the doctors at the hospital I work at, she used to call me a venting machine because during lunch break we would get together and she say, hey, sit down here. I just need to vent here. So So maybe, yeah, the counselor can just be a venting machine. Our friends can be a venting machine. However, venting machine also has its limitations. So friends being friends, if they're not a trained professional, maybe just at that limit only. So it's good to consider, getting help when you need it. Yeah. How do I get rid of this? Okay. All right. So because I work a lot with children, I thought, and a lot of us have either children, maybe we have grandkids, yeah. Maybe you might want to look into a few tips on how we may be able to help build resilience in children, yeah. And if after I've gone through all these steps, right, I like you to also be able to think about how you may use it, because not just for us to use it for our children or children around us, but it is important that if we can use this for ourselves, it's already one way of being able to build on resilience. Yeah. So the first step is let them hear, in reference to the children. Yeah. Let them experience disappointment so that they learn sadness doesn't last forever. Yeah. So we often get very protective. We can get very protective, if our children are, facing disappointment, frustration. Oh, it's a bad thing. Quickly make them feel good. Yeah. However, it is very important that they need to experience disappointment. By how do we do that? So we got to, teach them how to acknowledge that it is disappointment that they are feeling. For example, if we're talking about maybe a young child, 6-7 years old, trying to fix a Lego, for example, and then after a while you notice this little boy or little girl, it get into a temper tantrum and start to throw things because couldn't get it right. So actually, if we want, after we've sort of calmed this kid down and say, oh, what was that all about? It's a bad thing, don't behave like this. It's either good or bad. But however, it's a good opportunity to teach. Yeah. What was that feeling that you couldn't get it? It was disappointment, really. You were disappointed because you didn't get what you want. And disappointment is a very interesting thing, yeah. We don't get what we want, we are disappointed. We also get disappointed when we get what we don't want. Yeah, suppose I'm a kid who wants to have a bicycle for my birthday. I wanted a certain brand bicycle. However, my father bought me just maybe another different kind of bicycle. Of course, I will be disappointed, although I got a bicycle, but that's disappointment. Yeah. So step 2, validate their fears, validate this disappointment or whatever that they're feeling. Yeah. And help them make plans to do things, even if they're scared. So this is really about teaching them to accept that this is what it is. If there are things that here, which has happened, yeah, and what is it that they really are anxious about? What are they fear that might happen? How can we deal with it? How can we make plans? Sometimes we always have this thing called plan B, right? We always have plan B. We also have plan C. Yeah. So this is one way to teach our children how we can, solve problems. Yeah. So number 3 is let them take reasonable risks and experience natural consequences. We as the adults really cannot do too much for our kids in that way, because they really need to take the risk. Of course, when we say here is reasonable, that brings to mind how there were times I used to get really flustered, when my trying to sort of ensure my kids don't make a mistake. And then along the way, my husband was saying, sometimes there are people who just need to fall into a ditch in order to learn their lessons. I was thinking, yeah, because as an analogy, we say, don't go too near to that longkang, to that ditch. Don't go too near. It's so deep, you will fall, and you fall, you're going to hurt yourself. But these kids not going to listen, Sometimes, if they don't listen so much, they really need to fall into the ditch to experience. Yeah, there is this pain when you don't when you don't learn to protect yourself. Okay, maybe he needed to go down the ditch, but maybe there might be one way to go down into the ditch in a safer manner. Yeah. Okay, step 4. Encourage children to try new things, make mistakes, and learn from their mistakes, right? 5, give them opportunities to make their own decisions and help them to problem solve. Okay, step 6, tell stories of people who had faced hard times. Yeah, and these people who had persisted and they grew stronger as a result. Yeah, we tell stories sometimes, not just people, stories that we read from the internet, stories that we get from the newspapers. Nowadays, people don't really read newspapers, but stories about, people around us. It is important to tell these stories because children and we ourselves also enjoy listening to stories, right? Because it's through stories that we learn that we're not the only ones in this boat going through this tsunami, right? There are people who've gone through it and have emerged stronger. Yeah, and so this storytelling it's very important, and I use it a lot in my work with the children. Um, 7 is reframe challenges as short-term problems. Yeah, we break it down. It's not going to be forever, really. And these are opportunities for learning to be more patient. For example, maybe the lesson behind is to be more patient. Maybe opportunities to learn to be more persistent. For example, those things. Yeah. And last but not least, here, remind them that although we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond. So here it's a very important thing. I've used this a lot with the mothers at the hospital. I use this a lot with the kids. Those kids who are sick. They may be sick as in physically, but their mind is still very active. So my work with them is really about having or reorienting or changing the mindset so that the suffering it's lessened, it's reduced. Yeah, so these are the 8 ways to build resilience in children. Okay, so we've talked about the 5 ways, we've talked about ways to help children, and along the way we also learn how to do it for ourselves. I like to talk a little bit more about having resilience boosters. What are other things that we could use to boost up our resilience? Yeah, what else can be of help? So here, because we are also talking on the platform of essential oils, let me very quickly just run through it. Just this is for the benefit of some of our friends who are here who may not know about essential oil. And I'm not really going to go into detail. Just very, very, just a quick snapshot. All right. So essential oils are really extracts from plants, right? The leaves, the bark, the tree, the roots, and so on and so forth. So essential oils is just very, very simply put, it's powerful aromatic plant compounds. Yeah, they are known to be 50 to 70 times more powerful than herbs. Yeah, and it is easily synthesized by the body. So one of the reasons why I got myself to be a user of doTERRA was because of its certified pure therapeutic grade quality. Yeah. So here I'm looking in terms of its purity, in terms of its potency, and it's been tested, right? It's been tested by independent labs as well. So this is what I bought into. Yeah. So very briefly also, another quick snapshot how essential oil helps support healing. Basically in 5 stages. Yeah, essential oil strengthen us during each of these stages here and prepare us for the next level of healing. Now, essential oils assist in healing the physical body. Now, the key word here, I like everyone to just really remember, the word here is assist. It's not meant to replace, whatever other medical treatments out there. Yeah, it's really just assisting, a complementary, not an alternative. Yeah. And also then essential oil assists in healing the heart. Heart here I don't mean the organ, the heart organ. Here it's actually the emotional, yeah, the emotional self. Essential oils, I'm sorry for the typo there, assist in releasing limiting beliefs. Interestingly, it helps to help shake a bit of this, this really rigid mindset, believe it or not. You got to try it, right? Anyway, so then the next level is essential oils increase spiritual awareness and connection. And last but not least, essential oils inspire the fulfillment of our life's purpose. Yeah. So generally, essential oils, support healing in these ways. One more before I go into one more slide before I go into how essential oils can be resilience boosters. All right. So how fast do the oils work, right? When we sort of breathe it in, when we say aromatic, we breathe it in. It takes 22 seconds. The molecules reach the brain. Yeah. And then and within 2 minutes, they'll be found in the bloodstream, especially when we put it into when we take it internally. Yeah, in 20 minutes these essential oils will affect every cell in the body. So in a way, it just to tell you that there are this the goodness of these essential oils, especially if they are of a pure grade. Yeah, so I like to introduce to you, I call it the power 7 because interestingly, there are these 7 types of essential oils which might help with the building up resilience. And I didn't come up with this. I did a bit of research in a book that focuses mainly on using essential oil to help with emotional health. So what are these 7? So let's look at tea tree. Another name for tea tree is melaleuca. Yeah, tea tree. Now we're not going to talk about tea tree in its for its physical properties, like it's it is antibacterial and all that. We're not talking about that. We're now looking at tea tree for its properties in emotional healing. All right, it helps clear negative energetic baggage. Yeah. It specifically releases codependent and parasitic relationships. Yeah. When we talk about these relationships, what do we mean? These are toxic relationships, maybe with people, may even be with microorganisms in the physical body. Yeah. So, and it helps to break negative ties so that new healthy connections may be formed that can honor one's own personal space and boundaries. Yeah. I know of a case of a man who was having marital difficulties. Yeah. So there were times that when we talk about it, and I sort of talk about how it's important to draw boundaries, draw healthy boundaries. But that really didn't go down too well with this man. Part of the reason why he was going through marital difficulties was because he happened to be what we call, in the among the Italian culture, the mama's boy. So it was very much, this man was very much a mama's boy. So being a mama's boy has got its advantages and disadvantages. So at that point in his life with his wife, yeah, it happened to be at a disadvantage. So well, fortunately, so no matter what I sort of try to talk therapy only has its limits, really. So in a way, fortunately, the wife is actually a DoTERRA user, and she was talking about how he could use a diffuser in his office because he spends a lot of time in his office. We all spend a lot of time at work. So she says things like she said, since this this COVID-19, put in On Guard and please put in tea tree, and diffuse this. Interestingly, of course, maybe we could say that it kept all this virus at bay a little bit. But interestingly, the man, as I observed, he started to be able to really literally connect better with his family, his family as in his wife and his kids, and he was able to really draw the healthy boundaries that he was I was trying to get at. Yeah. So I really thought that was very helpful. That was really the booster that I felt I needed as part of, I couldn't give him a jab, right? But I thought, since I also didn't say, use tea tree, but it was so happened that his wife said, use this in the diffuser. So how can we use tea tree when we say we want to build, part of our resilience? Because we really do need to build healthy relationship, to connect better. It's also good to be able to cut off those that do not serve us, those as in those relationships, the toxic ones. Yeah. So what are the suggested uses would be aromatic. Either you inhale from the bottle, you can diffuse it, yeah, or you could place drops in your hand, rub it, and then you put in three deep breaths, and you exhale, yeah. You breathe in 3 times through your nostril, you breathe out 3 times. As you breathe out, is through your mouth, and then you inhale again. Second round, 3 times is through your mouth and breathe out through your nostril. And thirdly, it's you breathe in and out through your nostrils 3 times. Yeah. So topically means we apply 1 to 3 drops on the bottom of the feet, yeah, or the crown of the head here, yeah. Here, or if you don't have a diffuser, maybe we could use it, put several drops in a spray bottle and mist around the whole. Okay. So another oil we could use is Helichrysum. Yeah, Helichrysum is known as an amazing healer of emotional pain. It helps to restore confidence in life and in the self, giving the individual strength to carry on. So when we are undergoing a lot of stress, challenges, when maybe our resiliency is a little bit low, perhaps, Helichrysum could be of help. Yeah. Helichrysum has a powerful relationship with the light of the sun. It imbues joy, fervor, and hope for living. You really got to. I wish if we are in a physical class, for those who do not have this oil, actually we would probably pass around this bottle and for you to have a sniff. It's literally feeling that lightness. It's very much like sunshine in that little bottle. Yeah, you probably think I'm exaggerating, but I use it a lot. I use these oils a lot when things get me down. Sometimes I reach for my favorite bottle. My favorite bottle is a blend called Passion. It really gives me that oomph, that just that motivation to just I'm a part-time lecturer, so I've got a lot of these scripts to mark and assignments to mark. Sometimes it's like, oh boy, so but I put a drop of this Passion and then I say, whoa, okay, I can really mark the whole day and I don't feel that readiness anymore. Okay, what about the next one? It's lime. Lime is another name for it. It's actually zest for life. It instills courage and cheer in the heart, and it reminds us to be grateful for the gift of life. Yeah. It also encourages emotional honesty. So lime cleanses the heart, right? Especially when there has been an accumulation of emotional toxic due to avoidance or repression. That's what we do a lot, right? We don't want to think about it. Let's sweep it under the carpet, right? And therefore, a lot of denial comes up. So lime helps this, gives us sort of, I would say, a bit of courage to face it. Yeah. And it's also and lime can also assist individuals who have overly developed their intellectual capacities. Think too much. Just use too much of this. We always use this word, too cerebral. Thinking too much here, above the jaw, not so much connecting to the heart. So they sort of, high IQ but low on EQ. So lime is a good oil to use. Yeah. So I won't go through as you're looking at the slide. So you take a quick snapshot on how you might, look at how we could use lime is through aromatically, topically, or even internally. Take it internally. Yeah. Okay. Another oil is deep blue. Deep blue is a blend, right? And deep blue, if you look at this photo, it's got a big head here. It's a small little bottle of 5 ml, but it's got a big head. I remember when Alyssa first taught me about this oil, she said, big head once, please, it's not, you cannot put it into your body. Okay, you can apply, you can use it in the diffuser. So aromatically and topically. Yeah. So deep blue is for strengthening. It's also for soothing. Yeah. It helps individuals who are resisting or avoiding the emotions that underlie their physical discomfort. A lot of us have sometimes this shoulder ache or neck ache. Yeah, sometimes it could be because we're seated in front of the computer too much, or maybe our posture is too bad. But although we have tried so much and it's not helping, think about maybe could it be our emotional baggage that we're carrying? Yeah, maybe that's one factor that we need to look at as well. So Deep Blue helps by offering us strength to face emotional wounds and allowing the wounds to surface for transformation and for healing. It's got to come up. Yeah. So another oil is neroli. Neroli is about shared purpose and partnership, right? It's helpful for calming troubled hearts in relationship conflicts. Yeah, it invites individuals to develop the traits of fidelity, of empathy, patience, forgiveness, and resilience to help with our relationship challenges. Yeah. Two ways to use it, aromatically and topically. Yeah. When we use it topically, we could use it 1 to 3 drops over the heart, sacral, which is the lower stomach areas, and the throat, or behind the ears. And neroli here, it's in a slim bottle. It's what we have is a neroli touch. It's also a blend. It's already blended, so it comes in a roller bottle. We just roll it on. So we have copaiba. Copaiba, it offers assistance to those who are caught in the lower vibrations. When we talk about lower vibrations, there is this researcher, his name is David Hawkins. So he sort of did this research bits on, measuring emotions and at what frequency these emotions are vibrating at. So when we talk about lower vibrations, it's in reference to feelings like shame, blame, fear, self-hatred, yeah, and all these are very much in the lower vibration. And these lower vibrations probably were there, came up from our early childhood, from our early environment, yeah. So using copaiba helps to ease the process of remorse and self-forgiveness. Yeah, it sort of invites those who have done something that causes guilt or shame to undergo this process of remorse. Yeah, so that self-forgiveness can come up smoother, easily, much more easily. Yeah, because by acknowledging the reality of past choices and experiences allows us to grow and change in a more conscious and clear ways. Yeah. Again, there are 3 ways of using it here: aromatically, topically, or take it internally. Well, we also have this oil, the last of the 7. It's called turmeric. Yeah, I know we use turmeric in our curry and all that, but turmeric oil, essential oil, helps to give us strength and hope. Yeah, and it's very grounding. Yeah, it grounds us. We got to have this grounding feeling. When we are caught up in stress, we tend to feel very floaty. Our heart beats are actually a little bit more rapid. Yeah, you got to pay attention to all these symptoms, these physical sensations, so that when we are aware that we have all this rapid heartbeat, we take slow deep breath. Yeah, and then we also need something, perhaps maybe turmeric, to help ground us so that we're not so flighty. We're able to think a bit better. Yeah, it can also help to restore our faith in goodness. 3 ways to use it: aromatically, topically, yeah, and also internally. Okay, so after we've got all this, we've talked about, those 5 ways. We've talked about, the essential oil as boosters. Maybe just 3 more before we finish. Having a reflection, looking within. Yeah, especially when you want to do your mindful journaling, right? It might be helpful to, when you write about it, when you think it through, think about what is ready to be dismissed from my life. Yeah, from the thoughts, from relationships, from activities. We really do need time for self-reflection. It's very important. People who go to therapy, one of the things that they get better is because not so much you know, they make time to sit there with the therapist, right? And in that hour, actually, when they're talking, it's just not about venting. It's also doing a lot of reflection. By talking, by reflecting, they are actually organizing a lot of thoughts in there that's hovering here. But for me, to me, really, one of the things I always tell my clients is actually do this reflection by writing it down, because you don't see your therapist every day. In fact, you probably see a therapist once a month, once a fortnight, or maybe even once a week. What's going to go on for the rest of the time before you see your therapist? It's really, you got to do this work for yourself. You do your self-reflection. You do it repeatedly. It becomes a habit. Sometimes you don't really need to write it. You get it very, very quickly, automatically. Okay. It's good to also use affirmation. Yeah. Affirmation is a statement to reprogram our subconscious negative beliefs. You know, while it's hard to, you know, do a thorough spring cleaning because it's going to take a long time, while we get to, you know, really sit down and just, you know, scrub all those corners and, you know, just scrub up all the dirt, for example, if, you know, when we're doing spring cleaning. But here for here, the mind state here, maybe try using an affirmation. Yeah, say this aloud, especially after you've used your oil, after you've put it on, let's say topically or aromatically, you say, I am now refreshed and ready for life. Yeah. So I thought maybe I could, you know, use a quote by Forsyth. He says that the subconscious mind is obedient when assessed and directed to change. So here we're trying to sort of use affirmation to connect with the subconscious level. Yeah. One more way is visualization. Yeah, what is visualization? Is feeling, seeing, or experiencing something in your mind's eye. Yeah, by doing that, it increases the feel-good chemicals produced in the body. Yeah, because the brain really can't tell the difference between real and imaginary. So similarly, here we're trying to promote the good, right? Similarly, it's the same thing. If we say, you know, if we focus so much on the negatives, for example, like the fear or the anxiety, yeah, you think the brain knows whether it's real or imaginary. So when we do that, a lot of cortisol will be secreted. So cortisol is a stress hormone, and we're not going to go into detail about, you know, the effects of cortisol in our body, right? So here we want to promote these feel-good chemicals in our body. So visualization is a good way. Yeah. So so how do we do that? Yeah, maybe very briefly, you take a deep breath and you allow your lungs to inhale freshness and exhale what is no longer serving. Yeah, you could do that when you know, use your oils as well. Yeah. So here we are, very quick. This is my last slide in summary. So we've talked about the 5 ways of strengthening resilience, building connections, fostering wellness, find a purpose, you know, have a positive, keeping to a positive mindset, and getting help when you really, when it becomes too big. Yeah. And using essential oils as boosters. And the 3 ways that we just talked about: have your reflections, have good affirmations, and do your visualization. So with that, that's really the end of my slide. I hand it over to Vanita. If I can't check my chat right now, but if there are questions, we can do questions now. If not, you know, maybe Vanita can carry on. Then maybe later on, if there are questions, then we can tackle it. Is that all right?
Yes, okay.
Yeah.